Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you, Dr. Khalid, for introducing me to the participants. أحب الأول أهنئ الشعب السعودي الكريم باليوم الوطني اللي هو 23 سبتمبر. أسأل الله عز وجل أن يعيده على المملكة العربية السعودية والأمة العربية وبلاد الإسلام كافة بالأمن والسلام إن شاء الله. I hope you and your family all are safe during COVID-19 pandemic. I'm going to present this topic about obstructive sleep apnea syndrome. And our focus today about acoustic analysis. You know that this topic is ENT topic, but we will touch this topic from our point of view, from phoniatrics point of view. I don't know if any of the participants is ENT or all our colleagues here are phoniatrics. If you can type on the chair your name, your affiliation, place of work, so we can know each other. Okay, you can type your specialty, please. Dr. Khalid Al-Malki, phoniatrics, we have phoniatrics. If anyone with us, ENT, please type in the chat. Okay. As you know, snoring is a social problem. And the one who is suffering usually the bed partner, and the one who drives the patient to ask for medical advice is the bed partner. And many cases may lead to divorce because of this problem. As you can see, the wife feels annoyed because her husband is a snorer. Okay. Not only OSA, obstructive sleep apnea, is a social problem, but also it is a medical problem. It may be associated with many complications and may affect most of the systems of the body. That's why we call it obstructive apnea syndrome. And also most of the patients with obstructive sleep apnea are suffering from daytime sleepiness. That's because they wake up frequently during night because they do not have enough sleep because of apnea, and they get up frequently. So they become they have easy fatigability, exhausting during daytime, and they may endanger themselves and they may endanger others. So our objectives today to know the advantages and disadvantages of the current diagnostic tools used for diagnosis of obstructive sleep apnea and snoring, and to introduce to you a simple, non-invasive, non-expensive new method for screening, and it can be used as a complementary to the other existing diagnostic tools. Also today, we will understand why surgeons and some patients may become unsatisfied after doing surgical operation for those patients. And finally, we will talk about the voice and speech changes that might occur after surgical operations. Now we come to some definitions. Snoring is defined as a noise generated from the upper airway due to partial airway obstruction. Those patients are usually obese. They have redundant tissues in the upper airway, and these redundant tissues, the oropharynx, nasopharynx, or hypopharynx, vibrate during breathing. That's why snoring is produced. Snoring differs from stridor due to partial obstruction in the larynx, and it occurs day and night, but snoring occurs mostly during sleep. And apnea is the cessation of airflow at the nostril and mouth for more than 10 seconds. So the stoppage of airflow through the nose and the stoppage of respiration is called apnea. Hypopnea means decreased airflow at the nostrils and the mouth that result in decreased oxygen saturation, hypoxia, during sleep. And the apnea-hypopnea index is the sum of the apnea attacks and the hypopnea attacks, the number of apneas and hypopneas per hour. Obstructive sleep apnea means a sleep disorder that involves cessation of airflow in the presence of breathing effort, and when the apnea-hypopnea index is more than 5. So the definition of obstructive sleep apnea is when a patient have apnea-hypopnea index more than 5 per hour. It may be mild, moderate, or severe. And our topic today is the acoustic analysis of sounds. What's acoustic analysis of sounds? It's a quantification of the physical signal of the sound. This means that we take the sound signal, which is the snoring, like voice and speech, and this signal is subjected to acoustic analysis to get the parameters that correlate of the resonance and the voice and the quality of the snoring sound. So the types of apnea is either obstructive, when there is obstruction in the upper airway, or it may be central due to stroke or other causes of brain damage, or it may be mixed. We have degrees of sleep apnea or apnea in general. Mild, when the apnea-hypopnea index from 5 to 15. Moderate, when the apnea-hypopnea index from 15 to 30. And when the apnea-hypopnea index more than 30, it's called severe apnea. I will remind you again that the apnea-hypopnea index is the sum of the apnea attacks and hypopnea attacks in 1 hour during sleep. So what is the size of the current problem? About 40 to 60% of male patients above 50 years old snore. And in USA, about 22 million snore, and about 18 millions of the patients have OSA syndrome. Unfortunately, males are affected than females. The ratio is 3 to 1. And obstructive sleep apnea syndrome was identified as a secondary cause of hypertension. The precipitating or the predisposing factors are the overweight. Most of those patients are obese or overweight. The neck size, being a male, and alcohol consumption increase the risk of having this syndrome. The etiology of this syndrome is due to partial obstruction or complete obstruction at the upper airway, and either in the nasopharynx, oropharynx, or the hypopharynx. Usually the airway is collapsible at these areas, and the patients may have long uvula, redundant soft palate, large tongue base, redundant lateral pharyngeal walls. So we have different types of obstruction at these levels. Type 1, as you can see here in this diagram, type 1, the obstruction is due to the long redundant soft palate, and type 2, there is obstruction caused by tongue base and the soft palate. So the obstruction in type 2 is multisegmental. Here, the obstruction is caused mainly by the tongue base. So as you can see, many tissues can share in the obstruction of the upper airway and cause snoring. And when at the advanced stage of snoring is the obstructive sleep apnea syndrome. The pathophysiology of OSA, during awake, while the patient is awake, as I told you, that those patients, the neck circumference is large, the airway is small because of the redundant tissues all over the pharynx. So they have small airway, and also, but they have neuromuscular compensation. That's why snoring not occur and collapse not occur during the awake time. But during sleep, what's happening is they lose the neuromuscular control or compensation, So they have decreased muscle tone in the pharynx. So the decreased pharyngeal muscle activity. So the airway collapse because of the decreased muscle tone and because of the presence of redundant tissues in the pharynx. So apnea occur during sleep, and during apnea hypoxia, decreased oxygen saturation occur. During this stage, the patient shows increased physical efforts. We can see if in the sleep lab the chest movement and abdominal movement exaggerated, increased physical work and effort in the chest and abdomen. And also during apnea, the carbon dioxide increase that stimulate the respiratory center, so the patient aroused from sleep. And the pharyngeal muscle activity restored. When the patient is awake, the pharyngeal muscle activity is restored and airway opens again. And this cycle repeat many times during night. The patients may have more than 30 apnea attacks per hour during night in severe cases. So the complications of OSA are many, as stroke, headache, heart attack, arrhythmia, diabetes, fatigue, drowsiness, hypertension, obesity, and other complications. That's why we call it obstructive sleep apnea syndrome. I'm looking in the chat. Someone, Dr. Khalid, you can write. Yes, anyone, feel free to ask questions. By the end of the presentation, we can answer the questions, and you can comment at the end of the presentation. How to diagnose a case of snoring and sleep apnea syndrome? History taking. I think you are, all of you are expert in history recording. So we record the snoring, the duration, the obstructive episodes. We can ask the bed partner or the patient himself or herself. Usually the patient is complaining of excessive daytime sleepiness. As I told before, intellectual deterioration. We can ask about morning headache, nasal obstruction, consumption of drugs, and other history, other medical history of medical importance. This is the Epworth scale that gives us an idea about how much the patient fall asleep during daytime. You can read about it. And examination, usually we do a general look to the patient. We observe if the patient is obese or not, obesity, measure the height, the weight, and the body mass index. Usually you calculate the body mass index by dividing the weight in kilogram divided by the height in meter square. This gives an idea about the severity of the condition. If the body mass index is above 25, from 25 to 30, it's overweight. Above 30, obesity. Above 35, morbid obesity. During examination, we have to examine the oral cavity, the nasal cavity, the oral cavity. We look for the enlarged tonsils, adenoids, redundant soft palate, long uvula. The tongue base is observed. And we can do endoscopy to see the whole area of the upper airway, the pharynx, the larynx, the vocal folds. All the anatomy of the upper airway is visualized. There may be cysts or other lesions that cause obstructions. And also the neck circumference is more important than the body mass index according to recent studies. So what are the currently used investigations used for screening and diagnosis of obstructive sleep apnea syndrome? Usually, authors classified investigations into two categories. Categories that detect the absence or presence of apnea, and other investigations to detect the site of upper airway obstruction. So we have many investigations, as you can see, like polysomnography, lateral cephalometry, naso-optic fibroscopy using Muller's maneuver, sleep endoscopy, computed tomography, magnetic resonance imaging, and finally acoustic analysis of snoring sounds. We'll go quickly through these investigations. This is the polysomnography. You know, polysomnography is the recording of the physiological functions of the body. Usually, the patient stay one night in the sleep lab, which is a comfortable room. Is connected. The patient is connected to many wires, as you can see in this picture. These wires measure or detect the physiological functions of the body. The patient's connected to nasal sensor of nasal airflow, submental EMG, EEG, electrocardiography, chest belt to detect the chest movement, abdominal belt to detect the abdominal movements. A lot of wires, as you can see, the patient is connected to. The idea beyond polysomnography is to detect the presence or absence of apnea and the degree of apnea, the severity of apnea. And also it gives a lot of information about the current condition. This is the graph which represents the central apnea in the above diagram and obstructive sleep apnea in the below diagram. As you can see here, this is the nasal airflow. During apnea attack, there is complete cessation of airflow through the nose and the mouth, as you can see here. Here in central apnea, the thoracic movement is absent. The also abdominal movement is absent. And during apnea attack, there is hypoxia. As you can see here, decreased oxygen saturation. The same is applied for obstructive sleep apnea, except here, the abdominal movement and the chest movement are exaggerated during apnea because of the obstruction, and the patient is trying to take his breath. However, also there is cessation of airflow at the nose and mouth here, like the central apnea, and also during apnea attack, there is hypoxia or decreased oxygen saturation. By the way, you don't need to an expert to read this diagram, because at the morning you will get a nice report by the from the computer report for the different information of the polysomnography. So what's the disadvantage of this current investigations? Actually, it needs hospital stay, it's costly. One polysomnography may cost thousands of rial, and it's time consuming, as you can see, and it may need to be repeated more than one night. The second investigations that can be used in cases of obstructive sleep apnea, which is lateral cephalometry. Lateral cephalometry is a lateral head and neck X-ray that shows the relationship between the soft tissues and the bone structure of the skull and the face and the neck. We have important parameters here. This is the posterior airway space. If it is less than 11 millimeters, so it's suggestive for obstructive sleep apnea syndrome. And we have the posterior nasal spine palate, this line, and this measurement, when it is more than 15 millimeter, it's suggestive of obstructive sleep apnea. And we have the mandibular plane hyoid diameter, this diameter of this line. This measurement, if less than 37 millimeter, it's suggestive of the occurrence of sleep apnea syndrome. And also the disadvantage of the lateral cephalometry, as you know, the radiology exposure and the availability. The other investigations used to detect the site of upper airway obstruction, the nasal endoscope. Usually we enter the nasal endoscope to visualize the nose and abnormalities in the nose, deviated septum, turbinate, and other abnormalities. And we position the endoscope just above the soft palate at this level to see the retropalatal level, this level, and ask the patient during examination to do the reverse of Valsalva maneuver. We ask the patient to suck in air so we can detect the collapse in this area, in the retropalatal space during Muller's maneuver. And then we advance the endoscope downwards to a level that we can visualize the hypopharynx and the retrolingual, especially the retrolingual area, the area posterior to the tongue base. And then we ask the patient to repeat the same he did before, suck in air, to show the degree of collapse in the cross-sectional area here. This is a video clip that demonstrates this maneuver. Here's the endoscope. It's just above the soft palate. Here's the soft palate, posterior wall of the pharynx. And here the patient is attempting to do the Molars maneuver, and we observe and record the decrease in the cross-sectional area. Here is about 2+, and then we go downward to the retrolingual level. As you can see here, there is redundant tissues in the lateral pharyngeal walls. This is a typical picture of patient with obstructive sleep apnea syndrome. Now, the patient is attempting to do suck in air while we examine the hypopharynx, and you observe and record either 1+, 2+, 3+, and 4+. 4+ means complete obstruction. So we can rate these patients according to these findings about 3+, 3+. Okay. This is the scoring system for Molars maneuver, 1+, 2+, 3+, and 4+. Also, the disadvantage of endoscope using Molars maneuver is the availability of the endoscope, and also it's an invasive procedure. Also, we can use, or we can do sleep nasendoscopy, or what's called drug-induced sleep nasendoscopy. This procedure, like before, we use the endoscope, but this procedure is done under general anesthesia. We observe the mechanism of snoring. In this test, we are trying to simulate the natural sleep. So the tissue vibrate during sleep is observed, and the site of upper airway obstruction is detected. Why? It's important to detect the site of upper airway obstruction because the choice of the operative procedure later on. So if the surgeon is going to operate in the soft palate, the obstruction should be there in the soft palate. Otherwise, the patient will not be satisfied and the surgeon will not be satisfied. So it's important to detect the site of upper airway obstruction by different tools. So the disadvantage of this procedures, as you know, the anesthesia, it needs anesthesiologist or one expert in ATLS. And also it's invasive and needs the availability of the endoscopes. Also, another investigation, which is CT and MRI, it can be done during awake stage or during sleep. It measures the static and dynamic condition of the pharynx. Here during breathing, tidal volume, tidal breathing, and here the same area. This area is retropalatal, the pharynx, and this is during sleep. You can observe this during sleep, complete obstruction. So CT and MRI is helpful, and also the disadvantage is the radiology exposure and the availability. Also, video fluoroscopy can be used to diagnose upper airway obstruction, also during sleep and during awake. This study tested the efficacy of video fluoroscopy. They concluded that the study, the authors concluded that the video fluoroscopy is reliable and sensitive in detecting obstruction at nasopharynx in apneic patients. Now we come to the main point of our topic today, which is acoustic analysis. As I said before, acoustic analysis, it permits the measurement or quantification of the sound signal. As you know, snoring is produced from the upper airway, from the same anatomical area from which the voice and speech are produced. Usually we do acoustic analysis for voice and speech of the patients to get different different criteria of the correlates of nasality by using the formants, the fundamental frequency, and many other parameters we can get from acoustic analysis. Usually we use software, simple software, like MDVB, Multidimensional Voice Program, or VisiBeach, or Computerized Speech Lab. Many software can be used for this purpose. And what we need is just the sound signal. So the sound signal can be collected during sleep from at home or in the sleep lab. As I told before, we can measure the waveform, the fundamental frequencies, the formant frequencies, snore, loudness, duration, and many other parameters we can use in the acoustic analysis. So this is a study. Here, the author collected number of patients, and they categorized the patients into two groups: simple snorers without sleep apnea, and another group with obstructive sleep apnea. And they do spectral analysis for the snore sounds for both groups. This pattern on the left side represents simple snorers, and this pattern on the right side represents the patients with obstructive sleep apnea syndrome. As you can see here, simple snorers, there is. Can you hear me, Dr. Khalid?
Yes, we can hear you.
Khalid?
Yeah, we can hear you, yes.
Okay. Okay, fine. So this is spectral analysis of the snoring sounds of simple snorers and obstructive sleep apnea patients. We can get two different patterns. In the simple snorers, there is fundamental frequency and several harmonics. And in the patients with obstructive sleep apnea, we get low frequency peak with sound energy scattered on a narrower band of frequencies, but without clearly identified harmonics. Also, they found a negative correlation between the apnea-hypopnea index and peak and mean frequencies of the snoring power spectrum. This means that the acoustic analysis of snoring sounds can give an idea about the severity of sleep apnea. Also, there is another study. They used the formant frequencies. The phoniatricians and speech therapists know the formant frequencies are the correlates of the resonance of the vocal tract. So they collect 30 apneic patients and 10 patients with simple snoring, and by studying the snore sounds, by doing the formant frequencies F1, 2, and 3, and the sample was subjected to linear predictive coding after extraction of the noise to get a pure sound. They could differentiate between simple snorers and patients with obstructive sleep apnea. Moreover, we see we could see in the previous studies, we can differentiate between simple snorers and obstructive sleep apnea patients. So could we detect by acoustic analysis the severity of apnea? This study tested the severity of apnea by using the snore sounds. The patients are grouped into three groups. Group 1 with apnea-hypopnea index less than 5. Group 2 from 5 to 15. Group 3 with apnea-hypopnea index 15. So we have two different groups of severity of apnea, and these groups are divided divided and by the use of polysomnography. So after using polysomnography, you can divide the patient according to the severity of apnea. The snoring and breathing sounds were recorded with a tracheal microphone. The authors concluded that the sound intensity, several snore frequency parameters allow differentiation of snorers according to obstructive sleep apnea syndrome. So again, we can know the severity of apnea by acoustic analysis of the snores. So can acoustic analysis used to know the site of airway obstruction? We explain why the site of upper way obstruction is important for the surgeon to choose the proper operation for the patient. So the authors here are trying to use the acoustic analysis to know the site of upper way obstruction. So they have a good group of patients, about 516 patients, snoring sounds from 3 vibrating sources. By using the endoscope or drug-induced sleep nasendoscopy, they could detect the palatal snorers, the mixed types, the palatal and lateral wall snorers, and the third group, snoring sounds were generated from the lateral walls. And after using the fundamental frequency and the Foreman 2, they found that in palatal snoring, those two parameters, or these two parameters, the fundamental frequency and the Foreman 2, are much lower in palatal snorers. And this is an interesting study. The authors here use smartphones to collect the snoring sounds, and they classified or categorized the patient into 2 groups, the retropalatal obstruction and retrolingual obstruction. Now we have 2 groups. The first group, they have palatal obstruction. The second group, they have tongue-based obstruction. And by using the Foreman frequencies, F1 and F2, in the upper diagram, you can see the retrolingual group of patients. By the spectrogram, they showed sharp and regular peaks. However, in patients with retrolingual obstruction, peaks with a gradual onset and decay. So again, by acoustic analysis, we can detect the site of upper way obstruction. Moreover, the acoustic analysis of snoring sounds can used to test the efficacy or the reliability of other tests. Here, the authors used the acoustic analysis of snoring sound to test the reliability of the Muller's maneuver. They concluded that the Muller maneuver appears to have low predictive value in the preoperative assessment of palatal surgery, and also here they used the acoustic analysis of snoring sounds to test the reliability of drug-induced sleep endoscopy. Actually, in this study, the palatal snorers are diagnosed by drug-induced sleep nasendoscopy, and acoustic analysis is done for the same patients, snoring sounds in natural sleep and in drug-induced sleep nasendoscopy. So in this study, the authors take the snoring sound from a patient with natural sleep and another group with drug-induced sleep. And they do acoustic analysis for both snoring sounds. They found they are different. So the natural sleep is different than the drug-induced sleep. And also they could differentiate acoustic, they could differentiate they could detect different acoustic parameters before uvulopalatoplasty and after uvulopalatoplasty. This is our study done in MD thesis. We collected more than 50 patients and grouped the patient into 3 groups by the use of nasendoscopy and Muller's maneuver. The first group is the palatal snorers. This is the mixed type, and this is the tongue-based snoring. By using the fundamental frequency, we could recognize that the snoring sound by acoustic analysis, we can detect the site of upper way obstruction. again, in our study, by using the format frequencies for the different vowels, we could differentiate between patients with OSA and non-obstructive sleep apnea syndrome. So what are the treatment options available for those patients? As you know, there are behavioral modification, medications, oral devices, continuous positive airway pressure, and surgical procedures. The most important is the behavioral modifications, as I told you before, that most of these patients are obese, so they are instructed to reduce their weight if they are overweight or obese, changing the sleep position, stop alcohol and other medications that may cause the current condition. I can see some questions. I will respond to the questions by the end of the presentation. Oral appliances, either dental or tongue repositioning appliances. These appliances used in mild to moderate obstructive sleep apnea, like dental, oromandibular advancement, that prevent the tongue from blocking the throat and or advance the lower jaw forward. All these devices help keeping the airway open during sleep. As you can see here, different oral appliances can be used. This is the tongue retaining device that pull the tongue forward, so it opens the upper airway and prevents snoring and obstructive apnea during sleep. We will not go in details for this. Another treatment option, which is a continuous positive airway pressure, CPAP. A CPAP is a machine that delivers the air in a certain pressure to the nose, through the nose, to open the airway during night. Some patients may not tolerate this procedure or this machine. Drugs. Drugs are in minimal use in this condition, but I found many studies talking about the use of the combination of these two drugs, atomoxetine and oxybutynin. The authors assumed that this combination of the two drugs can reduce the apnea and the severity of apnea attack. The surgical procedures available, either tissue removal, because we said before that there are redundant tissues in the soft palate or the tongue based on the lateral pharyngeal walls. So one of the procedures is tissue removal by uvulopalatopharyngoplasty UTBB, laser-assisted uvulopalatoplasty, midline glossectomy, or by tissue shrinkage, radiofrequency ablation, jaw repositioning, hyoid suspension, glossopexy, implants, nerve stimulation, and in severe cases, tracheostomy may be needed. Here is the uvulopalatopharyngoplasty UTBB, the lateral pharyngoplasty, the laser-assisted uvulopalatoplasty, which can be done under local anesthesia. Also here the radiofrequency, the palatal implant system, and this is, I think, the last slide. This is our study published in 2020 to show the changes in the voice and speech after different surgical operations. So we collected some patients, and UTBB and laser-assisted uvulopalatoplasty, a tongue-based suspension, are done according to the level of obstruction after doing polysomnography, lateral cephalometry, and Muller's maneuver. After doing these surgical operations, we did acoustic analysis in the form of MDVB and nasometer to detect the changes that might occur in those patients, and the results was the sleep apnea procedure result in mild voice and speech changes in some patients detected only by acoustic analysis. So the changes in voice and speech were minor and only detected by the machine. But in professional voice users, we should be aware about the changes that can occur after surgical intervention. So we can give counseling to those patients that minor changes in their voices might occur in some patients. And to conclude our presentation today, acoustic analysis of snoring sound in patients with snoring and OSA is simple, non-invasive, cheap, and objective method. It can differentiate palatal snoring from tongue-based snoring. It is useful as a screening method to differentiate between simple snoring and OSA patients. The effect of UBB, laser-assisted uvulopalatoplasty, and tongue-based suspension on the voice and speech of the OSA patient is very minimal. Thank you for your attention. You feel free to ask questions and to comment. Now I will read the chat. So the effect of nasal, the first question from Dr. Abdulaziz, the effect of nasal obstruction in causing snoring. Yes, nasal obstruction can cause snoring, but I think it cannot cause sleep apnea syndrome, but it may be a cofactor in the causation of sleep apnea, but per se, it cannot cause sleep apnea, but yes, it can cause snoring. What do you prefer, awake or sleep nasal endoscopy, and why? Generally, what are the investigations you use in a case of snoring? I think sleep nasal endoscopy is more better than awake endoscopy, but the problem in the availability and I told before, it needs the anesthesiologist and special circumstances. What do you prefer? Okay. Investigation you use in case of snoring? Yes, all these investigations can be used in a case of snoring because you don't know if the patients who has snoring has sleep apnea or no. So the aim of the investigations first to know if the patients has sleep apnea or no. So we can use polysomnography, you can use lateral cephalometry, you can use endoscopy, Muller's maneuver, CT, whatever, any investigations you can use. Does smoking lead to snoring? Snoring per se, it does not a cause of snoring. Does oral appliances applicable? Yes, they are applicable in some patients. They're used by the maxillofacial surgeon. What is the rationale of drug usage in these cases? Okay. As I told, the authors assume that these drugs decrease the apnea attacks. I don't know the rationale of drugs. You can go through the internet to see the idea beyond these drugs. What are the main measurements you depend on after doing lateral cephalometry? What are the main measurements you depend? We actually in ENT, usually we use the posterior airway space measurements, as I told before, the posterior nasal spine palate, and the mandibular plane hyoid. I think these parameters are important in obstructive sleep apnea. Other parameters can be used by the maxillofacial if there is any dysmorphism or facial skeleton or soft tissue disproportion. Another question, if uvuloplasty is indicated for treatment, would CPAP be an alternative in stroke or a cause of complication of OSA? was indicated for treatment would CPAP be alternative stroke? I don't get the question. If uvuloplasty is indicated for treatment, okay, would CPAP be an alternative in stroke? I don't know what's the relation between stroke and this, a cause, a complication of OSA. Actually, OSA is caused by obstruction of the upper airway, but a stroke can cause central apnea. So CPAP can be used in obstructive sleep apnea. Dr. Khalid, are you still can hear my voice?
صوتك واضح ايوه الله يعطيك العافيه.
تمام.
يعني
طيب. Thank you very much. Thank you. You are welcome. Can acoustic analysis of snoring sound be used to diagnose OSA? Yes. The whole presentation is talking about acoustic analysis and diagnosis. Can be used as screening and diagnosis of OSA, presence or absence, as the articles I have presented. Yes. You are welcome. You are welcome. Thank you very much. I think no more questions. Thank you again for your attendance, for your attention. And I hope you get the idea beyond this presentation. Thank you very much again. Thank you, Dr. Khalid, for arranging and regulating this meeting. And see you. Thank you very much.
يعطيك العافيه. شكرا دكتور حاتم. This very nice presentation. I think a good thing to look at the issue from different angle. Thank you very much. Thank you all for attending our activity for tonight. Inshallah, we'll see you, inshallah, next activity 1 month from now. We will announce the lecture and the lecturer, inshallah. Thank you again. And again, we will be very much appreciating your comments and your suggestions for topics in the future. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.